As soon as you start engaging with something, you become an active participant, and your reality starts rendering on that timeline. This means talking about, reading about, or watching videos. Think of it as what you're consuming online, what you're focusing on, what you're giving your energy to, what you're talking about, what you're interacting with are instructions or code that is rendering your reality. Okay, so everybody, welcome back to the Law of Attraction Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Keith. And on today's episode, I'm explaining why this happens, why our participation in everything around us in our environment is actually creating our reality as we go, moment by moment, and what the science says about it. So, the reason I wanted to do this episode is because I've been saying this for a while about social media, but especially the last few weeks, it has been insane. The level of dark energy and fear and anxiety that's being pumped through our feeds on social media. And it's crazy because even like a year ago, the stuff that we're seeing now, it was pretty heavily censored. And even if we did see it, it was typically like you had to search for it or you were following a specific account, like a political account or a controversial account or like a conspiracy account. But now it's like in everyone's For You page. It's like right in our face. And I don't know the reason why, but I don't think it's for a good reason at all. I think it has to do with what we've known for a very long time, what the PR people back in the times of World War II knew. And that is if people are in a state of fear, confusion, anxiety, they aren't going to hold a lot of power. They're very easy to manipulate and to control. And that can only mean that that's what's happening right now. That's what I think. I think creepy ass Mark Zuckerberg is pushing this content for a reason, but it's probably everyone listening right now probably knows what I mean. So for me, it's like I understand looking at like a political account or something like that that you're going to see this kind of information, but I'm seeing it in the manifestation space, the spirituality space, the astrology space, and it's not even like people are just informing like, "Oh, looking at astrology, this could happen. This could mean war, like a world war." That's fine. If people want to say like, "Oh, this could happen. We should all course correct." That's fine. I have no problem, with being informed and like knowing possibilities. But I am seeing so many accounts, and especially in the astrology, like spirituality space, that are like, no, 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 this is happening 100% for sure. Apocalypse, like all this crazy stuff. And they're like, absolutely, it's going to happen 100%. I had a vision and this is what's happening. And I'm just like, this is insane. You're spreading so much fear when the reality is nothing is set in stone. And a lot of people who have actually made predictions or psychic predictions, had premonitions, things like that, that did end up happening, they will tell you nothing is set in stone because everyone has free will and things are constantly changing and moving. And so it's just driving me nuts that people are putting this like fear, like really dark, scary stuff out there. And it's like sucks you in, you know? It's so easy to get caught up in it. And so I've noticed when I go on, because sometimes like I do think it's really good, especially before bed, if I like watch funny videos, like I'll send them to Alexis, she'll send them to me, and it just if I'm like laughing before I go to sleep, it just puts me in just this really great, relaxed, fun, easygoing vibe. But lately it's like I can't even get to that because there's so much crap that's out there that is just pumping fear. And it's easy to get caught up in. And I've noticed within seconds, my energy shifting and me feeling very overwhelmed, anxious, worried. But at the same time, it's like you can't stop looking, you know? And this is coming off of like not being on social media very much at all. And so I go on for, I am not even kidding, like 2 minutes. And this is all the feelings that are coming up and how quickly my energy is shifting. And so that's been going on, right? And the other day, it was like I just got one of those intuitive hits where it's like I need to make a peace activation and just throw everything in it, like every tool at my disposal. So, subliminals, but also audible 8D affirmations, but also binaural beats and theta waves and frequencies and, nervous system regulating music and sounds because holy shit, like we all need to get our baseline back to normal. And I feel like it's almost unavoidable where, no matter what, you're hearing about things, even if you're not on social media, and people are talking about all these things. And there's just a lot going on right now. And I don't know, I got this urge. I'm like, I need to create this and get this out to as many people as possible. And I had it all like come through so quickly where I had the whole thing planned, like it just flowed, right? So I have everything ready and then I go to record and like my kids are just busting in my room like nonstop. There was no silence. And then the kids would calm down and then the dog would start barking. And then the dog would start barking and then someone would be like outside mowing their lawn. And like there were just all these noises and I'm like, holy shit, like I have it. I just need to record it. And I had this sense of urgency of like, this needs to get out now. Like everyone needs to start listening to this now to just calm your nervous system, put more thoughts and feelings of peace and a positive outcome to counteract all of this fearful shit that's everywhere, right? And I just couldn't record it. And so finally, I like kind of threw my arms up. I'm like, I cannot record it under these conditions. How are you going to record a peace subliminal when you're like feeling really anxious, you know? So I just said, all right, like today's not the day. I'm not doing it. And I took the kids outside to swim and I just sat in the chair out there and I'm like, I'm not going to listen to anything. I'm not going to read anything. I'm just going to sit outside and listen to the birds chirp. And I was like staring off into the sky and looking at the trees and just like I totally needed, to like reset. And I did that. And when we came back inside, I was like, oh my God, my energy completely shifted. And I just felt like so calm and relaxed and at peace. And I was like, oh, okay, now I'm going to go record. And it's a good thing I didn't record earlier. And maybe that's why the universe kept giving me all these distractions because my energy wasn't in that state, that peaceful state. And so once I was in that state, I was able to record it and there were no distractions, no noise, nothing. Like it went perfect. So, anyhow, I am making this free for everyone. So even if you are not in the app, anyone can access this audio for free because, again, I just feel like it's very important that we all collectively calm down. And even if I'm going to get into the science of why this is so important and why you calming down and regulating your nervous system and getting on this frequency of peace is going to affect everyone and everything in the world. I'll get into the science behind that, but even if you don't believe any of that I'm about to tell you, Worst case scenario, like let's just say none of that happens. Worst case scenario, it will still calm your nervous system and leave you feeling a sense of peace, less anxiety, less stress about all of this stuff going on in the world. So, worst case scenario, it's still going to help you. But I want to make a case for why I think that this is going to help everyone by you just listening to this audio, by me listening to this audio. Like if everyone focused on their own internal state, the collective would shift very quickly. So, anyhow, if you want to access this, I'll link it in the show notes, or you can just go to thelawofattractiontribe.com and it's right on the front page. It's like the second button and it says free 8D peace activation. That's the audio. It's also in the Manifest It Now app under the section labeled new. So you can get it in the Manifest It Now app, section new, or go to thelawofattractiontribe.com. The button's right there, or I'll link it in the show notes. Feel free to share it, send it, like whoever you want. I feel like the more people that listen to this, the better. So that's where my mind has been. And for a long time, and still to this day, I'll get in these modes where I do get sucked into it. And it's like you automatically think the world needs to change. The government needs to change. The leaders need to change. Companies need to change. People need to change. Like everything else needs to change when really we should just be focusing on ourselves, our own internal state, because that's all that we can control. But by us controlling and changing our own internal state, it has an effect on all of those things far more than, yelling about it or complaining about it, because that's just adding, that's just giving more energy to the problem, whatever the problem is. This is like, can be applied to anything, negative that you feel is going on. So that's what we need to be focusing on. And my husband kind of got me, he like flipped that switch. Every once in a while, he'll say something where I'm just like, it's a really good point. Like, you should come on the podcast and explain that. And he just doesn't like recording. He doesn't like his voice, which I get it. It's fine. I don't like my voice either. So I'll just try to relay what he said. So we listen to like a lot of the same podcasts, and I do enjoy a good, I don't even want to say conspiracy, but just, like weird things that are happening and finding patterns throughout history. Like, I love that stuff. I'm reading the book 48 Laws of Power, where they go over all of like the psychological things that either worked or didn't work throughout history and like every empire. And it's just fascinating. I love looking for patterns and things like that. So, anyhow, I brought up, oh, it was like the totally crazy story that's going around where Matt Gaetz was like on a podcast and was saying how he was briefed on some like alien human hybrid program. Okay. So, and that's a whole other can of worms. Like, I think so much of this is distraction, but it's fun to talk about, like stuff like that, like I don't get scared of or anything. I just think it's kind of like fun conversation, So I brought it up and he was just like, why are you worrying about that? Like we're all gonna die eventually. We know that. It's a given. Just enjoy the day. Like we were going to this like ranch with the kids. He's like, let's just enjoy the day and not worry about all the shit going on in the world. And I was like, geez, you're, like the most depressing person to talk to. And he's like, no, I'm not trying to be depressing, but he's like, I work in a hospital. I see people dying all the time. And these people, he's like, they probably are worried about the same things that we're all worried about, taxes or war or aliens or like all this stuff that everyone's talking about. But that's not what they should be worried. Like they end up having a heart attack and dying because we're all going to die. And why, instead of worrying about that and letting that steal your peace and your joy today with your family, you could be enjoying the day and not worrying about those things. And so obviously, like the way he said it hit me so hard. And I was like, that's a really good point, you know? Talking about it and worrying about it specifically isn't going to change it. In fact, I believe that talking about it and worrying about it, you're giving your energy and focus to it. And I've had to come to that conclusion over the last several years, but I do think it feeds into it. You're like giving your energy to something that you don't want. And when you're giving your energy to one thing, you're taking your energy away from something else. So his whole point was don't give your energy to this crazy ass topic. Give your energy to like what we're doing today, what's right in front of you. You know, your kids, this beautiful day, the ranch that we're going to, and just enjoy it because you never know. Like you never know when you know your time's up, which is kind of sad and morbid, and I get that, but I do think it's good for us to remind ourselves of that perspective. You know, that what are we doing here? Like what are we why are we wasting our time in this constant state of fear or complaining or whatever when we should be enjoying every moment because you really do never know when it's going to be your last. So that was kind of the precursor to all of this. And something I was talking about a lot this week because of that, and I've thought this for a while, especially after getting into look, you know, all the things with quantum physics and quantum catalysts. We talked a lot about this as well. But I really believe, like with every fiber of my being, that there are like different timelines. I feel like there are two very predominant timelines right now. And this is what I think a lot of the astrologers are trying to explain, um, but doing it in sort of a fearful way, which I don't think it is. But I feel like there are two timelines emerging, kind of like a fork in the road. And you can choose fear or you can choose peace. You know, you can choose anger or you could choose love. And so you could be physically sitting right next to someone, and you could be on one timeline and they can be on another. And you're coexisting together in this overall picture, but you're experiencing two very different realities because your perception shapes your reality. So there's that aspect of it. If you can control your perception and you can work on that and change that, your internal state, you can change your reality. And everyone has to do that for themselves. That's why trying to go and force it on everyone else doesn't work. You have to do it for yourself, just like the person next to you has to do it for themselves. However, our thoughts, our feelings, our energy, our vibration overall does contribute to the collective because we're all connected. Okay. And this is where I want to go with getting into the science of this. Like, if there's one thing that I want my kids to know, that I want the world to know, that I think we should be taught on a deeper level, is that everything is connected, deeply connected. Everything. You are not separate from anyone or anything. So the space in front of you is not empty. Okay, it's filled with energy. We'll call it ether. You can call it whatever you want. I know there's a lot of different theories on it, but it's filled with energy. You are made up of energy. Everything you're looking at right now that you think is solid, like your phone, your computer, your chair, your house, it's all just energy. Even your thoughts and your feelings are energy. They can even be measured as energy. Okay, so this web of energy connects everything, which means that your spark of energy ripples out throughout the entire web. Okay, so I guess a good analogy would be the internet. the World Wide Web, right? We're all connected to it at this point. Everyone is a part of the internet. And on the internet, there's different timelines, right? There's a really dark, scary part of the internet. There's really positive things that have come from the internet. And each individual user they get to choose what they're tuning into, what reality they create when they go on the internet based on what they search for, what they click on, what they consume. But what they do, if they put a post out, not only does it affect them, but it is going to affect everyone that comes into contact with that, right? Like it goes out. It's like a signal that goes out. So that's just the way my mind helps to understand this bigger picture. So if you are stuck in fearful thoughts, which so many are right now, think of it as like you're sending out this pulse of fear through this energy. You're like shouting out in the internet, like fearful thoughts. If you're filled with peace, you're sending out this pulse of peaceful energy to the collective. Okay, so it's really influencing your reality because if your internal state is peace, that's going to be reflected in what you see in your reality. If your internal state is fear, that's going to be reflected in your reality. But it's still going to have a little effect on the collective because we're all connected energetically. So if you want to change the external world and all the crazy stuff going on in the world, you need to change your internal state. And that's the big disconnect because we think like we've got to change everything, like the whole, all these bad people, all these bad things, all that, like the whole thing. And the reason why that's so disempowering is because it feels impossible. And you think that's too big, it's too far gone, it's too impossible. And so you just give up and you feel helpless and despair and all these, things that just kind of drain your energy. When if you really focused on watering your own grass, focusing on your own internal state, and you realized that doing that is going to have a ripple effect far beyond what you could possibly fathom. If you realized that, then it doesn't feel so helpless and impossible and difficult and too big and too far gone, right? So that's the shift that I think would really empower people. And if everyone felt empowered, things would change, right? It's like they call it the bystander effect in psychology, where I think it came about because there was a crime being committed and people heard screaming, and it was like an apartment building, and nobody called the police. And the reason nobody called the police is because everyone thought, oh, someone else will call. And so everyone felt like disempowered, like someone else will call, when really, if they just thought about, like, I'm going to pick up the phone and call, the police would have come and helped this person. So they call it the bystander effect. And I think it's why things don't always change because we think like it's too big for me to handle, someone else will handle it that's got more resources, more connections, whatever. When really, if we just focused on our little piece of the world, our personal life, things could change. Okay. So that's because we're all connected. And now I want to get into the science because we've heard this forever. They have talked about this in every religion forever, that nothing is separate. Everything is part of this greater consciousness, part of God, part of the universe. However, when you hear about it in our modern day, there's a lot of people that just think it's like woo-woo talk, like, oh yeah, okay, we're all connected. That's not helping me like pay my taxes, you know? And there's this kind of doubt that even if you're like into spirituality, you still might have this doubt that like you really have that much effect on your world and on the entire world. So I want to go over the science behind how we're all interconnected because it's way more founded in science than we've been taught. And I think it's important because the more evidence you have to back this up, the more your subconscious is going to believe it. And it starts to chip away at that little bit of doubt or resistance that you have in truly understanding your own power and how everything is interconnected. Okay, so sorry, I had to take a sip. My throat is so dry. Okay, so the first concept that I want to talk about is called the quantum vacuum. And basically, what this means is that what we would consider empty, like empty quote unquote space, actually contains energy. Just like I said in the beginning, the space in front of you, it's not just empty, it contains energy. Wallace Wattles called it the ether. He called it thinking stuff. And if you've never read that book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, it's super old-timey. He wrote it during the Industrial Revolution, so the language can be a little tricky to follow, but for me, it just clicked because of this concept that this isn't just a bunch of empty air. It is thinking stuff. It's intelligent energy. It's an intelligent substance. And we can impress our thoughts upon it to create things. That's what he teaches in this book. And so, from a quantum physics perspective, even completely empty space still contains fluctuating energy. This is, no one's going to debate this. Like, it is what it is. So, particles, quantum particles, the smallest, tiniest particles, appear and disappear spontaneously. And so this demonstrates that the universe is not made of solid, separate objects, but dynamic fields, or like I'm saying, the collective web. If you want to think of it as a field, if you want to think of it as a web, whatever visual helps you. This is what quantum physics shows. So you're not separate from me or any of these objects that we would consider solid matter. It's all part of this web, this field, this, simulation, this game, however you want to look at it, to where it resonates. So your reality is more like an energetic field than a collection of objects, of matter. Nothing is truly solid matter. It's all just energy. Okay, the second point is 0 point energy. So think of this as like the baseline energy of the universe. And Nikola Tesla talked about this. Back then, this was pretty well known, well regarded. It was this ether is energy that can actually be harnessed. So this was like people just knew this, and then I don't know, it went away when they realized they could start charging for energy and electricity thanks to Edison and JP Morgan. But looking at the science, even at absolute zero temperature, quantum systems still contain measurable energy. Okay, so what this means is that energy exists everywhere, even in empty space, even at zero temperature. And the idea is that matter, what we perceive as matter, arises from fluctuations in these underlying fields or in this collective energetic web. So that would mean that there is this underlying energetic structure, quantum field, energetic web that is something we can't see, but it is like the foundation of our reality. Okay, so just like the World Wide Web, the internet, we can't see it. Like we don't go online and see all of these different connections and Wi-Fi and understand how it all works, but we don't have to. We just trust that it works. We trust that when we go in and we search for something, it's going to come up. We trust that when we go on and we talk to someone that's on the other side of the world from us, that it's real, right? So why is it so hard for us to fathom that there is this web that connects us all and that our thoughts and our feelings are communicating with everything else, just like we can go on the internet and communicate with everything else via energy, via electricity, via Wi-Fi. Okay, so and the 0 point energy thing too. If you ever look into that, it's very a very fascinating topic that maybe I'll get into on another episode, but let's stay on track. Okay, I want to give you more more scientific evidence of this. So the third is the quantum field theory. And this theory says that particles are excitations of fields. Okay, so basically, same idea. Particles, they're not independent like things. Instead, they say like excitations, but like think of, for me, vibrations makes a little more sense. So the particles are not little individual objects, they are vibrations of underlying fields. And so this theory suggests that the universe is composed of interconnected fields rather than separate things. Okay, so see, like all of these theories are all saying the same thing. And these are well regarded. I mean, you can go look them up. But I mean, there's really no doubt at this point that this is true. I mean, I think even a lot of mainstream science agrees with this. I had on Mark Gober, I think it was like a month or two ago. He talks about this. He talks about consciousness. So I've had a few people on if you want to go listen to those episodes where we dive into that. But the point is, there is this field. It's not woo woo, it's not magic, it's not spiritual. Everything is made of energy, and all that energy, we're all connected to it. Okay. So the sooner we can just like make that a given, the better. And once we know that, we realize why it's more important than ever that we shift our focus from all the external noise to our internal state, our internal thoughts, feelings, and energy. Think of us as like an individual dial. And if we can adjust our dial, it plays into the vibration of the whole. So, again, like this is what was going through my mind when I made the 8D peace activation audio. Because I thought if like you had just me doing it, great. But if I could get like everyone that's listening right now to go and adjust their own dial to peace, imagine how much stronger that signal would be in the collective. And then if all of those people could send it to just one other person, their mom, their best friend, their significant other, their coworker that's stressed, their friend who's like depressed, whatever, just send it to one other person. Imagine how much stronger the signal would get. And if everyone did that, like it could go on and on and on. That's the power that we have. That's the ripple effect that we have that we can't even fathom, but is very real. This made me think of a story. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but just a real quick story to demonstrate this. So I'm trying to remember. I think it was the telepathy tapes. I'm almost positive. Season 2 is out of the telepathy tapes. If you don't know, it's amazing. And one of the things that they do is interview people who have had near-death experiences, and they talk about the life review. And the life review is basically where you review every single moment of your life. And one guy was explaining it as not only do you look at what you did, but how that rippled out and affected other people. So he said, for example, let's say you're having a bad day and you are really rude to the cashier at the store. So you're going to feel from her perspective, not just how you felt and not just how she felt, but then how that ruined her day. And she passed it on to the next person in line and was rude to them and how that made them feel. And it goes on and on and on. And I thought that was like such a good way of explaining this ripple effect that we don't see. And we never will unless we have this life review. But can go on far beyond what we can fathom. And so if we think about positive things, and if that could ripple outward, then why not try, right? Why not try to shift the world by shifting your own internal state, you know? And as I said in the beginning, worst case scenario, like it just helps you. Best case scenario, it does ripple out and help other people. Okay, there's a few more scientific bits of evidence that contributes to this. You've heard me talk about this one before, quantum entanglement. So, quantum entanglement, um, it basically says that particles that are entangled remain correlated even when they're separated by vast distances. So they've done experiments repeatedly now to show this. And basically, like if you do something to one, the other particle will instantly change, even if it's like on the other side of the world. And this can't be explained by classical physics. Okay? It just can't. And so it suggests this deeper level of connection, this underlying reality that we can't see. Like it's not, we think of our physical reality, but there's this whole underlying energetic field that's really the reality. And this demonstrates that. And by the way, the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to Elaine Aspect, John F. Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger for their experiments with quantum entanglement, proving this. They proved that entangled particles influence each other instantaneously, regardless of distance. The only way that can be explained is if there's this underlying energetic web. So, and this is everyone in science knows about this, right? This isn't like a conspiracy or woo woo or anything like that. And then number 5, I want to talk about the holographic principle, which is that information may be fundamental. So there are theoretical models that propose that information describing reality may exist at a more fundamental level than physical objects. So the same idea. We have our physical world, but what's really underneath that world, it's all energy. Okay. And this means that everything is more interconnected than what we can perceive with our 5 senses. And this is where the infamous declassified CIA documents go into this. They explain how we are living in this holographic reality and that there is this energetic web that creates a hologram that we see as our physical reality. So that's another totally separate episode, but fascinating to dive into. Okay, the last piece of evidence, and then I want to get into a different side of the science behind all of this. But the 6th piece of evidence that we're all interconnected is called integrated information theory. And this is all about consciousness. So this is an attempt to quantify consciousness based on how integrated information is within a system. So again, if you haven't listened to that episode with Mark Gober about a month ago, go listen to that because he explains this in detail, how like consciousness is fundamental. It's not within us, like within our body. It's outside of us and we're interacting with it. And this theory, integrated information theory, suggests that consciousness exists on a spectrum. So it raises questions about our awareness and whether awareness is more fundamental than previously thought, where they thought it was just in our brain. So if we're all interconnected, which after looking at this, I mean, I don't know how people are still denying that we're not, or that we are connected. Like we are all interconnected. This is undeniable. So if that's the case, and we understand that now because we have a little bit of evidence to back it up for our subconscious to get on board, then shifting our internal state would in fact affect the energetic web, and it would influence things outside of us. And if you weren't thinking this, it would be crazy. So I'm just going to say it. Even if you're totally on board with what I'm saying, there's probably a small little voice inside of you that's saying, this goes against everything I've ever been taught. This can't be true. People would be talking about it more. Like there's like that little sliver of doubt, right? And you're correct. Like this does go against everything we've been taught. In fact, there's an entire separate field of science called quantum physics that had to be created in order to explain all of these things that make no sense according to the classical physics that we were all taught in school. So it's normal for your subconscious to be a little thrown off by this because it does go against what you've seen with your own eyes as physical matter. And you can't see this energetic web. So it's okay if there's a little bit of doubt, but if this weren't the case, they wouldn't have had to make a separate field of science called quantum physics. So I want to start with the double slit experiment that changed everything and is what it's basically how quantum physics was born. And I've gone in depth on this specific experiment in my quantum manifestation bootcamp series. So you could go, like, if you want the details and you want to like deep dive in all this, you can go back to that series. It's on the podcast. But for today, I'm just going to give a quick summary. So the double slit experiment gave us the observer effect. And the observer effect says that your attention changes outcomes. So in the double slit experiment, quantum particles behaved differently when they were measured versus when they weren't measured. And the only thing that was different was that a person measured it. And when the person didn't measure it, it acted completely different. So this was like wild. This was like magic. This was crazy. This made no sense. It left scientists baffled. And what it showed was that light behaves as a wave until it's observed. And then as soon as it's observed, it becomes a particle. It's like you're taking this energetic web that I was just talking about. And once you observe it, once you start interacting with it, you smash it into your physical reality and it becomes a definitive object. Okay, that is what this experiment says. So, what this means is that reality isn't fixed until you start interacting with it. And this is why in the beginning, when I was getting so mad that like you have people that are like, oh, I had a vision and this is going to happen, there's no stopping it. That's not true. Nothing is fixed until you interact with it. And this is why I think we could be on two different timelines where someone is interacting with one reality and someone else is interacting with another. And so physicists like John Wheeler, which we'll get into, they look at this and as consciousness playing a role in how potential becomes physical reality. So that basically there are infinite number of outcomes in every moment. But your consciousness, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, you are collapsing those infinite possibilities into one possibility based on your thoughts, your feelings, your perception, all of that. So your attention is creating your reality. Just like in a video game, like you're rendering reality as you go through it. And you've heard, I know everyone listening has heard the saying, where attention goes, energy flows. That's what this is. That's what this is saying. So here you go. It's backed by scientific evidence. It's not woo-woo. All right. Number 2 on this second path that we're on of interacting with our environment and co-creating is called the participatory universe. So reality may not be separate from us. So this was proposed by John Archibald Wheeler, who I just talked about. And he suggests that the observers are necessary participants in the universe. So like essentially, and this sounds crazy, but essentially the universe wouldn't exist if there weren't people to observe it. It's like that old saying, if a tree falls in the forest, but there's no one around to hear it, did it actually fall? No. Like the forest isn't even there if there's no one there to observe it. And so he suggests that the mere act of observation can bring reality into form. And he thinks it's more than just observation. Like he's the one that kind of went into our perception creates our reality. And again, this lines up with those declassified CIA documents that say that we're in this holographic reality and we can change our reality via what they called patterning, which is basically just a different term for what we would call manifestation. And these CIA documents also say that we can go beyond our five senses and we can expand our consciousness and see more of this underlying reality by shifting our brain waves with what they called hemisync technology, which is just binaural beats. And by the way, they're in every single one of my subliminals and audios in the app. And that's why they're very powerful. So, all of this science and all this quantum physics, it also aligns with the research that's being done on neuroplasticity. Okay, so when you look at brainwave states and neuroplasticity, it says the mind adapts even as you get older, which for a long time they thought like your mind can only be molded when you're younger and that you don't create, new neural pathways into adulthood, but now that's debunked and you can. And so the brain actually like physically changes based on repeated thoughts and experiences. And that repetition is important. Repetition is what strengthens neural pathways. So this is why subliminals are so potent because they give you that repetition. It's saying the same affirmations over and over and over again. And your emotional states influence your perception, your attention, even your decision making. And your nervous system does as well. So if you have a calm, regulated nervous system, you're going to tend to perceive more possibility, more opportunities. You're going to think outside the box. You're going to think more creatively. You're going to get more into that flow state, which again is why like having a peace activation audio is so beneficial for you personally, like just you alone, and being able to see all the opportunities right in front of you and come up with creative new ways of doing things to get in that state of creative flow and ultimately to change your perception. And if we change our perception of the world, it affects the reality we create, the reality we see. Okay, it's the observer effect, like I just talked about. So I want to give you another analogy. I think I gave this analogy a long time ago, but it's a good one for me, at least. Let's say you're at a park and you see a big, huge dog, and you've always had big dogs growing up, and your experience has always been that big dogs are just so playful and they're cute and they're fun and they're cuddly. So you see this dog and you smile and you say, "Oh, he's so cute." And you go and you pet it and its tail is wagging, right? And you just shared this beautiful experience with this dog. Okay. But now let's say there's someone else at the park and they didn't grow up around dogs. In fact, they were attacked by a big dog when they were little and it traumatized them to the point that they have a huge fear of big dogs. So now you're at the same park with the same dog, but where one person saw this big friendly dog, this person now perceives danger and their alarm flags are going off. And now it sees you having this reaction and being really fearful. So now it's on edge, thinking she's acting really weird. She's being really tense and not friendly. So now it thinks you're the dangerous one and it's growling at you and you leave in fear. Okay, so this is what I mean about like two timelines coexisting right next to each other. You're at the same park with the same dog, and you have one experience, and your friend has a completely different reality, a completely different experience, because your perception creates your reality. And so, big picture, right now, there's all this talk of World War III and like the apocalypse and like all this crazy shit. And the person right next to you could be totally like on that wavelength and living in that fearful world. And you could be living in a world of like, wow, like it's such a beautiful day. I have my family, I have my health. Like I'm going to enjoy the day. And so you're in the same, reality, but like two separate realities based on your perception, two different timelines coexisting right next to one another. That's what I'm talking about. And so, back to the neuroscience. Let's say you are that person who's afraid of dogs. You can shift your brainwave state. You can create a new neural pathway and you can teach your subconscious to start to love dogs with repetition and with sound technology. Remember when I talked about the CIA documents talking about hemisync? That whole thing is sound technology that we all have access to. And you can use that to completely shift your perception of the world, which then shifts your reality. Okay. And so if you can shift into the theta brainwave state, you're going to be more receptive to change. Change is going to be easier because what happens is when you're in the theta brainwave state, your subconscious has its guard down. So you naturally go into this state as you're falling asleep at night or as you're waking up in the morning, but you can actually use sound technology to help you get into this state like almost instantly. And so this is like a deep relaxation state. It's the state you're in like right as you're going to doze off. It's also associated with creativity, imagery, and emotional processing. So, this is why it's so good for reprogramming beliefs because we tend to have emotional ties to beliefs. A lot of us feel really emotional when it comes to like money, for example. Like money's bad and it's scary and you know what I mean? Like because we've had all this life experience of bad associations with money, and we have a emotional reaction to that. So this is why the theta brainwave state can help shift things so quickly. You have an emotional reaction, we all do, when we hear about things like war, right? That's why the theta brainwave state can help to calm you down and to get you back into that peaceful state. And so in this state, you're basically shifting from your analytical brain to like this more receptive, flexible, creative space. Like shifting from your analytical to your imagination. Okay. And so this is why in almost all of my audios, I use the theta wave. There's a few audios where I use Schumann resonance, but Schumann resonance is very similar to theta. It's almost the same hertz. So it's just that's why I do it. And that's why when people are like, oh, can I try these other waves? Like, yeah, you can. I've just had a great experience with theta waves for reprogramming your perception and your reality. So when you're in this relaxed state, you can create new patterns. They form a lot easier. It's a lot less work, a lot less time that has to go into it. And that's why subliminals are so crazy good because and this by the way, people always ask like I can't hear the words on the subliminal. I don't know that it's actually doing anything. This is why it's so important that you don't hear the words all the time. Now in the peace subliminal, there's words you can't hear and there's words you can hear. Most of the subliminals you don't hear anything because that will trigger your conscious mind to start paying attention. And once that happens, you get that analytical brain activated, and we don't want that. We want you in this creative, flowy state. Um, so that's why I just don't do it most of the time. But with the peace subliminal, since this is going out to so many people that probably aren't familiar with subliminals, I wanted to give some good calming affirmations as well. But I do them in 8D. And all the 8D is it basically feels like it's swishing around in your head because it's going from your left ear to your right ear to your left ear to your right ear. And when you do that, it helps to shut down that analytical part and just let you like flow with it. So I'll do the audible affirmations if they're in 8D. And when you get that repetition, you start to create the new neural pathway. And eventually it changes the way your brain's filter works. Okay, so your brain's filter is called the reticular activating system, or the RAS. And so basically, what you focus on is what you see. Okay, so this is why, like, something can happen right in front of you and you don't even notice it if you're not focused on it. So there's like millions and millions of bits of information every second that your brain is scanning for. It's only going to consciously show you what it feels is important. And so if you can shift that pattern, you're going to see more positive things. So if you're more focused on peace, you're going to see more evidence in your environment of peace. If you're focused on fear, you're going to see more evidence of fear. And we've all heard the example, like you go and you buy a new car, and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere on the road. The car was always on the road. You just never noticed it until it was important to you because your brain was not filtering it. It was just like, this is not important for you to know. So that's how all of these opportunities can start to show up that are really positive when you can shift that neural pathway and create a new pattern. So, anyhow, that's a ton of science behind it that I threw at you, but I wanted to do that because I wanted to make sure that you realize how powerful you are and that you can shift things within yourself. And that when you shift things within yourself, you shift your reality because your perception is creating your reality. And what you do, what you think, the energy you put out into the world is affecting the collective. And so again, I made that 8D piece audio. It's free for anyone that wants it. You can share it with whoever you want. It has everything we just talked about: binaural beats, theta waves, both subliminal messages and audible affirmations, relaxing tones, the 8D audio effect, like everything is in there. It's super relaxing. Your nervous system's going to absolutely love it. And the internal shift that you feel is going to ripple out far beyond what you can fathom. It's literally changing not just your world, but the world as a whole. It's influencing the collective. So again, I'll link that in the show notes. You can go to thelawofattractiontribe.com and you'll see the button for it. It's also in the Manifest It Now app in the news section. So go listen to that, share it far and wide. We need it now more than ever. Control what you're focusing on, where you're giving your energy so that you can receive positive energy and you don't get sucked into this fear and give away your energy, leaving you feeling depleted. I hope this helps. I really do. Please follow up. Let me know. Message me at Law of Attraction Tribe on Instagram and let me know what you think of the audio. And I will catch you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.